Rotlevi and Akiba Rubinstein. So let me give you a background. Akiba Rubinstein is considered as one of the players who couldn't become the world champion, and they were very close to the world championship, a world champion. Okay, they were the best players who couldn't become the world champion. So there are 3 or 4 people who are named like that: Paul Keres, uh, Akiba Rubinstein, and Victor Korchnoi. So these players were very good. They were generally in the top 2. And in fact, for Akiba Rubinstein, he had a world championship match scheduled with Lasker. But during that time, 1914, the World War I broke out. And after that, the war was there for 4 years. He was in Poland. So Poland was part of Russia, and Poland was badly affected in World War I, and a lot of people died of famine. And also after World War I, he was not as good as his earlier self. His peak was around 1905 to 1915, somewhere around that time. He was very good, and he had defeated many times, Lasker and even Capablanca. So he was extremely strong. But yeah, the World War I happened, and after that, he was not strong after that, not as strong as earlier. And also that time, it was like the challenger had to arrange the money. He had to arrange the sponsor for the championship, for the world championship. So that was a real problem. I mean, Akiba Rubinstein was not so well connected, so he couldn't arrange that money, arrange that sponsor. Okay, so this game was played in 1907, and Akiba Rubinstein has contributed a lot in opening and end game. And he was a very strong positional player, uh, not a very good tactician, but yeah, this game is full of tactics, and it resembles the game of Tal and Alakine. Okay, it's more on the nature of Tal and Alakine's game. It is so it starts slowly, but then it explodes like anything. And Rubinstein uh, comes up with a brilliant combination, and some people call it the Polish Immortal, and one of the best games, one of the best combinations ever. Okay, so one of the best. It's not, everything is debatable what you consider best. So let's look at the game. So white was George Rotlevi. He was another Polish player, but not as strong as Rubinstein. He was not a grandmaster or something. Grandmaster title was conferred later to players, because before FIDE was formed, there was no Grandmaster title. They later on gave Grandmaster title to players who were very strong. Okay, so this started with, and black was Rubinstein. So it started with the queen's pawn opening, double queen pawn opening, d4, d5. White started with knight f3, uh, developing the knight, and black played e6. So e6 is okay. I mean, it shuts off the light squared bishop of black. This happens in a lot of queen's gambit openings, where the black's light squared bishop is later on developed. So it generally develops via b6, bishop b7, or later on black plays e5. But the problem child is the black's light squared bishop. Okay, so but this is still this is how it unfolds right now. And one more thing you have to understand, that these guys played about 120 years back, when the opening theory was still not as rich as today, so it was still evolving. But still, e6 is okay. Modern grandmasters will be more flexible. They will start with knight f6. Even if they want to play e6, that will happen after 1 or 2 moves. But they will generally play knight f6 on the second move, rather than playing e6 and making a commitment that, okay, I'm going for the queen's gambit structure. Uh, White mostly right now they play c4. This is going into the queen's gambit. C4 is what the modern grandmasters they would play. But here, Rotlevi played e3. This is a slightly passive move, but there's no fundamental problem in this. The white, see what happens when you have this pawn chain, right? So typically, as white, the white should keep the bishop outside the pawn chain. Otherwise, you have to develop the bishop on the a1 g8, a1 h8 diagonal. That you are declaring that, okay, you will play b3 or something, and you will fianchetto the bishop on the long diagonal. So e3 is not a very ambitious move. C4 is more precise, but see, this is a fundamental thing. We'll see at the at move number 5, and this is the same position which can transpose from different openings. In fact, I was checking on ChessBase. I can show you. There's a very recent game between Carlsen and I think Peter Lecco, which happened from after the fifth, the position which we arrive at after move number 5. The same position has been played by Carlsen and Peter Lecco. So e3, and black plays c5. He attacks the center. White also follows c4. Black plays the queen's knight to c6. White develops the queen's knight to c3, and black develops the knight to f6. So this position is called the symmetrical Tarrasch. This is the symmetrical Tarrasch, and it can arise from different openings. For example, if I search on the database, I can show you, I will show you in fact, white can start with c4, c5, knight f6, knight f3, knight c3, 1 minute, c4, c5, knight c3. You can take out all the 4 knights. Let me show you. I mean, if I show you, like suppose I start with this c4, c5, okay, knight c3, knight f6, knight f3, knight c6, e3, e6, d4, d5. So you arrive at the same position from transposition, okay? So this position, if I show you right now, let me show you, there are more than 8,000 or 80,000 games which have been played from this position. What? Yeah.
Sir, it is symmetrical. That's why it's symmetrical Tarrasch.
Yeah, that is a symmetrical position. Everything is symmetrical, so that's why it's a symmetrical Tarrasch. Okay. So if you see, there are more than 11,814 games played from this position. And the recent game which has happened is between Carlsen and Peter Lecco. So in fact, if I show you that game, it started with c4, c5, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, knight c6. They have brought out all the 4 knights and played e3, e6, d4, d5. So this is a transposition. This can happen from several move orders. Okay. So let's get back to the game. And so their game started with, okay, let me put that. It is the position which you have to see, d4, d5, knight f3, e6, e3, c5, c4, knight c6, knight c3, and knight f6. Okay, so this is the same position. All of you see this, right? You understand the transposition, right? It is the same position.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
it's the same position which had come in that Carlsen game.
Yeah, Carlsen Peter Lecco game, and in fact there are more than I think how many games were there? 80,000 or something. There's so many games in that position, and so this is a standard position. This is a symmetrical Tarrasch. The current grandmaster theory, the current theory is, see, this is a sort of Queen's Gambit structure, and this is called the Battle of Tempo or Battle of Tempi. So what I mean is, both the sides, they don't want to develop the king side bishop unless the other side captures on, suppose black captures on c4, then you want to immediately take with bishop c4. And similarly, black is also playing a waiting game, and he waits till white captures dc5, and black wants to capture in one go, in one tempo. Okay. So this is called the Battle of Tempi. So both sides, they want to play more, useful move. So current theory says you should play a3, and black can also respond with a6. And sometimes what they do, they want to capture towards the center. See, the central pawns, the D and E pawn, are more important than the C pawn or the F pawn. So generally, white captures towards the center, that is preferred over capturing away from the center. Okay. So this is a very fundamental thing. You have to actually, it's not that, again, I've told you, chess, there is no generalization. It depends on the situation. But typically, you don't want to play DC. Here you can play after you have included A3, A6. I mean, I was seeing some of the games yesterday. They have in between the top grandmasters of today, and they have this DC5, BC5, and B4. Okay, after inclusion of A3 and A6, they play like this. But here, uh, Rotlevi, he made an inaccuracy, slight inaccuracy. He played DC5, and Black develops the bishop in one go. Bishop C5. Okay, let me promote this main line. So this is what, so Black was able to develop the bishop in one go. So White, as per the current theory, he doesn't take it. He doesn't commit inaccuracy, because if you lose tempo, you effectively turn from White to Black. Okay, so if you make inaccurate moves, suddenly you are playing White, but you are Black. So White plays A3 and Black plays A6. The idea of A6 is White wants to expand on the queen side. I'm telling you some opening theory also, so that you understand what is happening and how the thought process is evolving, how the players thought. And the books which I'm referring, the two main annotators whom I've referred is our good friend Gary Kasparov, my great predecessor. He has annotated this book after move number 19. Okay, so I'm referring to Gary's work. And the other one which I like a lot is Boris Gelfand's work,
Okay.
Dynamic Position Making. So these are the two.
So that book name is My Great Predecessor, right?
My Great Predecessors.
Yeah,
He has
okay.
written 5 series. So mostly these two books I have studied this thoroughly, and there are several Grandmaster videos which I have seen, but these are the two main annotators whom I have used in my understanding. Okay. And this game is one of the favorite of Boris Gelfand. And let me tell you one more story. Vishy Anand, he pulled out something similar to this Rotlevi-Rubinstein game against Aronian. Against a game when he was playing Aronian. Aronian was white and Anand was black in 2012. And he had used the concept similar to Rotlevi versus Rubinstein. Okay. So that also is a fantastic game. That is one of the best games of Anand. Anand has played about 8-10 brilliant games. I mean, a lot of brilliant games, but he considers 8 or 10 of his games as very beautiful. And one of the game is inspired by Rotlevi Rubinstein. Okay. And you'll see that, first let's look at this. So this is another lesson, why you want to learn classics. And finally, you have to know the whole game blindfolded. Like this game, I have studied so many hours that I know the whole game blindfolded. Similarly, the Morpheus game, the classic games, you should know the whole game blindfolded, or at least the critical moments, what you should be doing, because those ideas you can use in your game. Okay. So otherwise, your progress will be very limited. Okay. So the idea of A6 is basically, see, White wants to play B4 and kick this bishop. And if you don't play A6, he might also play B5, expanding on the queen side quite a lot. So someone might argue, then why not start with A5 itself? If Black plays A5, he stops B4 immediately, right? But if you play A5, what happens? You create a big hole on B5. Okay, this is a lovely square, juicy square for the knight. And you don't want this to happen, because see, as you become strong, the fight is for these squares. I mean, which square you leave unguarded, the opponent will try to occupy that. And in chess, you have to give some squares. It's not possible that you do not give any square at all. You have to give some squares to get some squares. That is there. But Black didn't want to do this. So A6 is correct. A6 is, he doesn't want the knight to jump to B5. That is fine. So White plays B4. Now, Black has two options. He can keep the bishop on the A7 G1 diagonal, or he can retreat. But the A7 G1 diagonal right now is not very good, because the pawn is on E3. The pawn is not on E4. So, I mean, in some, so here the preferred move is bishop D6. Bishop E7 is passive and not good. Bishop D6 it's hitting on H2. If Black castles, it's at a good position to aim at the White king after he has castled. So now comes the first question. What do you think? Can White capture the pawn on D5? If yes, how? I mean, how, and if no, I mean, if yes, why, and if no, then also why? Do you think that white can capture the pawn on d5 or not? You have to calculate, then only you can. This is not intuition, this is calculation now. Shushrat,
So I need to think a bit.
Shushrat, what do you think? Can white capture the pawn on d5?
I'm checking.
Can't hear you, Shushrat.
No, I don't know the answer yet.
Still less audible. Yeah.
I'm just seeing.
Okay, see. Calculate for a minute. If anyone gets an answer, he can tell me the line. Vihan, any idea?
Sir, I'm just thinking about the capture thing.
Okay. Kushan, any idea? Okay, so let me tell you. See, this pawn on d5, you are attacking it 3 times, right? By the pawn on c4, by the knight, and by the queen. And it is defended 2 times. But
Yeah, sir.
at the end of the line, the queen is on d5, unguarded. And you have the heavy pieces lined up. So bishop b4 will come and your queen will be lost. So it's a blunder if you think that you can capture the pawn. So black set up a trap actually by playing bishop d6. This is a very simple trap. When the heavy pieces are lined up, it's something similar to what we see in the French defense. There's a poisoned pawn on d4. So similarly, this is a poisoned pawn on d5. White cannot he can capture once. He can capture once and play bishop e2. In fact, that is the best move. Not now. I mean, he can play it later also, but this he can do. Capturing once and playing bishop e2 is fine. But now he cannot capture it here. Knight d5 is bad. In fact, it is losing. I take here and you play queen d5 and bishop b4 happens.
The bishop cross b4. Yeah, it's a
cross
discovered
b4.
attack.
Yeah, discovered attack on the queen. You can play queen d2, but you lose the queen. Okay, so Akiba.
That's an awesome move. I didn't see it also.
Yeah. So Akiba had set up. This is a very simple thing. I have told you when the heavy pieces are lined up, the discovered attack will happen, and you will lose the piece if you are not careful. Okay, so this bishop d6, Akiba had set up a trap. The opponent was strong enough, so he didn't fall for this trap. He played bishop b2. Okay, developing the bishop on this. This is called the fianchetto. It's developing the bishop on the principal diagonal, a1 h8. Black castles. White cannot still take the pawn because of the same reason. If you play cd5, ed5, knight d5, queen d5, bishop b4, and still the queen falls. Okay, so still you cannot take. But the best move in this position is to exchange once. Give black an isolani. This is called an isolani, or an isolated pawn, because it doesn't have any neighbor, and then play bishop e2 and castle. This is the best move. This is what Boris also says, and I mean, a lot of analysts have analyzed this thing, but this is the best way, because the isolated pawn is a weakness in the end game. In the opening and middle game is fine. That's why we are calling it equal. So white should just play bishop e2 or bishop d3, or bishop e2 is fine, because if you play bishop d3, he plays bishop g4. And,
White shouldn't be like greedy and take it.
No, that is for sure, that we have discussed. You cannot take it.
Yeah.
But bishop d3, I like less than bishop e2, because if you play bishop d3, what happens that black plays bishop g4, and I mean, if you don't want to castle kingside, then it is okay. But if you want to castle kingside, then you will never be able to move your queen. If you move the if you castle once here, if you move the queen, he will capture the knight and your shelter is broken. So that is why bishop e2 is preferred here over bishop d3. But this is what they recommend. I mean, Carl Schlechter, also one of the analysts, and Boris also, he recommends this, that after taking once, you should play bishop e2 and castle. That is the good way of playing here. Or you can also play yeah, there is another move which is which they suggest, which is not as good as this one. What they suggest is bishop d3. This is slightly inferior. He takes here, you take here, black plays b5 and you go back. It's a symmetrical position with black to play. So actually white has become black and black has become white. But this is not there's no fundamental problem in this. Only thing is, in symmetrical openings, white always has an advantage. Here you will see in this game, white lost couple of tempi, and because of that, the advantage swung to black side. So tempi is very important in chess, especially when the position opens up. In close position, it doesn't matter, but the d4 opening also later on it opens up, right? The center, once it opens up, the pieces will breathe fire. So the tempi will become very important. Okay, so
Yeah.
So here he played. That is how he should have played: cd5, ed5, bishop e2. That is the best way of playing, and castle kingside. But what he did was he played queen d2. Now queen d2 is the first inaccurate, I mean first mistake in the game. Definitely, I mean first mistake in the game, because see, the center will open up, and there are two things which you have to understand. The queen loves to attack the opponent's king, and queen is always vulnerable on open files, because the rooks will occupy the open file and you will lose another tempi, right? So that is why queen d2 was heavily criticized by the analyst. They were suggesting capture, I mean cd5, ed5 and bishop e2, or queen c2 is fine because you want to play rook ad1. Queen c2 is fine because the queen is aiming at this diagonal, even though it is guarded, but it's a good diagonal. And this is decent play. Queen c2 can be played, or capture, cd5, ed5 and bishop e2. So he played queen d2. This is the first first inaccurate was that, but that was not blunder. It was just a minor inaccuracy. But this is first mistake. Okay, this is queen d2 is definitely not a good move. Now, what black did was he played queen e7. He wants to occupy the d file with the rook. So actually now white could have taken the pawn. And in fact, Boris says that white should take the pawn even though blacks gets an initiative. I mean, even though black gets an initiative, you can still go ahead with this idea. I mean, that is one of the ways you can play. Takes. Now white will get a lot of tempo here. Black will get a lot of tempo because he's a pawn down. He's going to develop very fast. So he is going to play bishop e6. One line which he has suggested is bishop e6. Then white can go queen d3 and something like that. And then rook d8 will happen. So black is getting a lot of play here. So this is a little bit risky. I mean, you can go for this. This is a risky approach. But still playable. It's not that you are losing by force. In fact, this is what Boris says, that white should have gone for this, and the modern engines, they also prefer to play white, even though defending is very difficult. Black's play is very simple. He's going to bring one of the rooks to d file, the other rook to c file, and you are still undeveloped. Okay. So the other way of playing here one was to take this. The other was to still take the pawn on d5. And don't grab the pawn now, still play bishop e2 and castle. Bishop e2 still, or bishop d3 and castle. This was a safer way of playing. Bishop e2, I would prefer that. So this is either he should play with this bishop e2, or he can, 1 minute, black marks are coming. 1 second. So he should take the pawn and play bishop e2. Okay, take cd5, ed5 and bishop e2. Black has an isolated pawn on d5, and you should play against that. So this is one way he should have played. So what he did was he did a mistake. I'll tell you where were we? CD5. No, he didn't go this. Bishop B2, castles, and yeah. So he played Queen D2 that we have seen, and after that Queen E7. This is the main line. Let me promote this. Okay, so Queen E7, and here he played a bad move, Bishop D3. This is the first mistake in the game. We'll see this why this is a mistake, because what happens is, let me promote this line. Yeah. So Bishop D3 is inaccurate because now you see what will happen is black captures the pawn here, white captures back. He has and black plays B5 and white goes here. So the white bishop has moved 3 times. It first went to D3. Then when black captured on C4, it went to C4, and then it came back to D3. So he has lost 3 tempi. And if you compare with black, the black played bishop C5 in one go and then bishop D6. So black has played 2 moves to land to D6 and white has played 3 moves. First he played bishop D3, then he played bishop C4, and then he came back to bishop D3. So he has lost 1 tempo, right? All of you understand this? This is slightly tricky thing. This tempo thing you have to understand, because you will see this is the reason why the trouble happened to black. In symmetrical positions, tempo is very important. So black, if you see white's move, white first played bishop D3, then black captured here. You see this thing, white went bishop D3, right? Captured here, he moved to C4. And then he came back again to D3. So he has played 3 times. He has moved the bishop 3 times and black has moved only 2 times. So black has gained 1 tempo. Okay. So now after this, black played rook D8. Keeping the rook on the same file. This is another idea, another thematic idea which all of you should know or should understand and appreciate. Whenever the file is opened, even though there are pieces in between the heavy pieces, but still discoveries can happen. Whenever you have a queen and the opponent has a rook, you have to be cognizant of that, or you can get out of that, because otherwise the trouble can happen. That is one thing. Or if the rook is opposite the king, you have to be careful if your king is opposite the rook or the queen. Okay. So one sample line which they, if black castles, white castles immediately, then black can even sacrifice the bishop. Bishop h2. This is not very strong, but he can play this. King h2 is bad. If you play king h2, I get a pawn for free. Check, and you go back, I pick the bishop. Right? And black is a pawn up. So here, if he takes the pawn here, you are forced to play knight h2. Okay? And then black can attack the pinned piece. The piece which is pinned is d3. So how do you attack the pinned piece? With a pawn or another piece. So knight d5 is knight e5 is another move which can be played. And now, okay, so it's attacking the bishop. So what do you do anyway? So white takes the pawn here. It's a discovered attack on this bishop, on this knight, right? Are you seeing this? The bishop is attacking this. If you take the pawn here, I take your knight.
Yes, sir.
Right? So black takes this bishop, safeguarding the knight and taking the bishop also, and white plays knight d4. Black takes this, white takes this. So everything is equal. Black is slightly comfortable. I mean, if you see both sides, they have the equal number of pawns, 5 pawns each. Black's king side has become white's king side has become little bit soft, and there's a bishop on the board. The board is quite open now. So black has some advantage. So perhaps
White's castle side is a bit weak. Like
correct. So white was afraid of this type of discovered attack. I'm just telling you that this type of thing exists. That even if you have heavy pieces lined up, you can sacrifice this thing, okay, and create. And this is another important thing, that bishop h2. If you play king h2, then you are a pawn down. You cannot play king h2. You have to play knight h2 here. If you understand black's idea, you will be it is very obvious that you have to play knight h2, because if you play king h2, then you are a pawn down without any compensation. And that is not the way of playing. I mean, with correct play, then you will lose the game. I mean, very difficult to hold, probably losing. So knight h2 is forced. And this is again an idea that the pinned piece you have to attack. And that too you have to do immediately. Otherwise, white will play queen e2. You should not give the opportunity to the opponent to breathe. So knight e5 is a very important move to play here. If you don't play here, it's like you have given the piece for nothing. Okay, this is very important. And now, okay, black has given a piece. He has got a pawn. So that's why knight b5 is a strong move. Okay, if you take my knight, I take your knight. And if you then play queen d7, I play rook fd1. That will not work. That is not the good line. Okay, if you take here, I take this knight. Now you think, okay, I'll attack the pinned piece. How will I attack? I can bring the queen only. There's no other piece which can attack immediately. If you do that, I protect myself. And then next move, I'll duck the queen to e2 and defend. So that's why sample line is here that after he takes knight h2, sorry, not the king is really bad. You have to play the knight h2. Here, knight e5, you should take this. He takes, you can take with the rook also. I mean, taking with the rook also is possible. But I will play queen e2 when your rook is still hanging. If you protect your queen, this is also playable, but your knight is also hanging. Your rook will also hang. So that's not good. I mean, this is better. And this is one sample line which I'm just showing you. Okay. So white understood this idea and he played queen e2. So we have just 2 minutes left. So queen e2, if you see, white has wasted another tempo. He played queen d2 and then he went queen e2. Black played queen e7 in one go. So white has lost 2 tempi, and this is going to be very crucial in the game. 2 tempi is like he's not only playing black now, white is playing black, and black has played one extra move also. And that is going to be very crucial, and that is what Rubinstein showed in the game. So everyone, all of you understand that black has lost, white has lost 2 tempi. Okay, 2 tempi is very crucial.
Yes, sir.
So black plays bishop b7. He develops another bishop. I mean, completing the development, and black has white castles. Now, if you see, the position is almost symmetrical. Only thing is, black's rook, instead of being on f8, it is on d8, and it is black's turn to play. That's why he is 2 tempi ahead. Okay. So we'll start from this after the break, and the real fun will start